Boy, haven't we been busy, Steve?
We sure have. We've been in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we've gone on a hike in Charlotte. We've seen a lot of scenery and sights in downtown Charlotte.
And we rode the funny bus, and we got to see Steve's brother. He turned 80, and his sister-in-law too. She's 79. I think that was one of the most fun I've ever had on a trip. Even though we were there one full day,
Yeah,
we sure did a lot, didn't we?
We sure did. That was fun. And I hadn't seen my brother in a while, so it was nice to get back together and celebrate a big milestone birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was just in such good health physically and mentally. It was great to see somebody who's 80 and just in great shape. And we got these in the Sam's Club in Charlotte, and oh my gosh, they are incredibly heavy.
So we can't wait for the cold weather because these sweatshirts are so thick.
We are prepared. And the orange stripe matches the orange on the wall.
Look at that. Look at that.
Not planned at all, was it?
No, that certainly wasn't planned. But it looks good. And of course, you see our orange walls that we painted.
And what room are we in now, Steve?
Oh, we're in the office. And it's bright orange.
Our new office. Quick, I would like you to comment below. Who picked the color, me or Steve?
Let's see if you can figure that one out. Who picked this color?
And please, we want to know in the comments what you think. Who picked the color? When we got home from Charlotte, we were busy painting, but we already had the paint before the sweatshirts.
Yes, exactly. See, when we hiked on Crowder's Mountain, it was 0.8 of a mile to get to the top of Crowder's Mountain. At the top were beautiful views, but to get there, you had to walk up 337 steps, which might sound simple, but the steps were not level, was not even, and so you were walking somewhat on the side of the steps in some parts, but it was real nice, real good exercise. Once you got to the top, beautiful views. You were so high up, you saw birds flying below you. And it was only 1,600 feet up.
So when we saw the steps in the write-up, they labeled this hike strenuous. And it said because these steps, well, we had hiked Amicalola Falls, and that also had roughly the same amount of steps, but those had a nice railing and many, many landings. You could stop after about one flight, which is one or two flights, which is like a household flight of steps. So you could rest frequently. So this one, there really wasn't a good place to stop and rest. Luckily, there weren't a lot of people on there because we just stopped on the steps because it was a little steep. So I would agree going up this way was strenuous. Going down, we went down the other way, which was 1.8 miles. And that one was a lot more gradual. So if you hike up that one and hike down that one, I'd say anybody could do it. But if you do the steps up or down, I would say, especially down with no railing, I would say we saw people kind of struggling coming down before we went up.
Yes, exactly. It's much easier to walk down the side of the mountain, 1.8 miles, as Sue said. It's much easier to do that after you've been at the top.
So it was a good walk. We saw going up the tough, steep side, a lot of athletic people. So we should have been warned that this is the more challenging side. Both paths were labeled strenuous, even though the one was not really strenuous until the very top. You had to go over some really tricky, rocky areas to get to the very top.
Yeah, it's the rocks and the roots that get you every time. You had to go around a cell phone tower, repeating station. and that was a very thin trail that you walked around.
Well, it was confusing because there was not a lot of good signage. We really didn't know the names of the trails. I think in the video I might have mixed them up. Because unless you're using the map, we only saw one sign, and it didn't have the name that we thought the trail was. I think it had different names.
Yeah, and also if you have iPhone, the map program on it can help quite a bit too, because it will show you where you are and the trails that are right near you to walk down.
We even asked someone who hiked it frequently, and she didn't know the names of the trails. So most of the people say they just hike, they don't pay attention to the names. So that was a little confusing. Every hike we go on, it's usually the first one. We usually only do it one time. We're always confused. I always think if we go back, then we would say, yeah, we remember this. But usually we just do a one-time thing. But we found out about this at the Welcome Center. We stopped when we got to North Carolina, and a woman was so helpful. She had to go in the back room to give us this pamphlet. It wasn't even out on the shelves.
Wow. Yeah, but we're glad she did, because it was a nice hike, like Sue said, and we would go back because it's just really you have to enjoy the nice hikes, because some of them are strenuous and treacherous, and they're not really as pleasing of a hike, and so you have to enjoy the ones that are.
I would love to go back when the leaves change. We just love to see that, but I don't know. That was our first trip to Charlotte. We just couldn't believe that. Yeah. I mean, technically, I had been to Charlotte when I graduated college. I interviewed there with a department store, and it was the first time I've ever flown in my life. And that was an awful flight, but I mean, I went right to the interview and right back home. So I never saw any of Charlotte. So we had never been to Charlotte, amazingly.
That is amazing. I had been to Charlotte one other time. And,
did you see anything?
For business, but I did not see anything. I didn't see anything.
Oh, my goodness. But we found out there's so much to do there from that funny bus. That was such a good tour because we saw all the things. I would love to go back to the Mint Museum and even the NASCAR Museum, which I'm not a big NASCAR fan, but I do enjoy seeing different
exciting.
cars.
Yeah, it's got to be exciting. And the Mint, I'm looking forward to. So we may make a trip back there in the not too distant future, because I'd also like to see my brother again and see the NASCAR Museum and the Mint.
And then there is another mountain, I believe Kings Mountain is there to hike as well. And I don't know. There just seemed like a lot to do in Charlotte. In addition to the fun we've been having, we do have to also keep up with our health. So we had a sleep study scheduled. And what happened? We had a sleep study canceled because it's been 5 years since we've been diagnosed with sleep apnea. And it took a while to get the appointment. And then what happened, Steve?
The sleep therapist canceled the appointment that morning.
The last minute. They told me she was sick, so we had to reschedule. So we are going to show you when we do that, what it entails to do a sleep study at home. It's really not that bad. I know people are nervous to go off somewhere and do it. I would have been reluctant myself, but thankfully now they are at home, and we're hoping that it is mailed to our house. We're hoping we don't have to go in to pick it up, because that is also a nightmare, to go in and pick up the machine and then return it the next day. We're hoping it is mailed when we do get it.
Yeah, that makes sense. We hope so. Makes it a lot easier than having to travel an hour plus each way.
And then we had our A1C tested a few months back. When we found out we were pre-diabetic, we had to wait 3 months, and we were no longer pre-diabetic. However, we think we need to get tested every 3 months, or at least once in a while, because we were so close to the abnormal level that we want to get it tested again.
Absolutely. I think that it's a good idea to get it tested every 3 months, at least for a year.
So we do have to continue on a day-to-day basis. I mean, we've slipped a little with going to Charlotte. We did eat some things we normally don't eat. It's very hard to go on vacation and not eat something you're not supposed to. It's really hard to find healthy foods. I usually gain 1 pound a day whenever we're out of town. So if it's 2 days, it's 2 pounds. 3 days, it's 3 pounds. Even though we do hike or do some exercising, you just can't eat those carbs at all.
Exactly. I mean, I eat carbs and I just blow up, and it makes me very lethargic, and that's not good.
So other than that, we had talked to Steve's brother. We found out he was a Medicare consultant, volunteer consultant. So he had no financial gain of advising people on what to do for Medicare. And we were shocked to find out that. We did talk to him and we made a video about that.
Absolutely. And we found out some of the pluses and minuses of what you should select with Medicare.
Well, it is a state-run program, so he only gave us what help he could as a general thing because it is run state by state, but he gave us some advice. He was a little concerned about us retiring without having health insurance from a job in retirement and without having a pension. He was a little concerned about how we're going to survive the rest of our lives with Social Security and 401ks. He was actually pretty concerned.
And I think a lot of people are in that bucket because not a lot of people have pensions and guaranteed health insurance for their life.
And even if you have a pension, it could be low or it could go bankrupt, as so many of them have done. So, but I was concerned when he became concerned because I told him our house was part of it and we were going to sell at some point. But he's a very ultra conservative. As he said, he wants to sleep at night. He was a little concerned about us retiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, he did retire at a younger age because he had a pension. And everybody we've talked to who's older, who has a pension, none of them have regretted retiring at 63 or 65 because they had a pension. But we also met a woman at the hotel at breakfast, and she is 79. She has a very tiny pension. She did not retire until 71. Her and her husband both receive $40,000 a year in Social Security, and she's 79 now. So she has a small pension. She actually recommended waiting till 70 to get your Social Security. So she said she actually wanted to work now at 79, but couldn't find a part-time job. So the people we've talked to had no regrets of retiring young if they had a pension. However, if you retire at 62 without a pension, it's tricky. That's really tricky. So no one had regrets. This woman wanted to work more. So yeah, you don't hear a lot of people saying they want to work longer, but like I said, this lady was 79, very healthy. So we met the 80-year-old woman when we went to Charleston who retired. Her husband was 62, and I believe she was 60. She had no regrets about retiring young because they had a pension, but it was a lump sum. I had the impression they had run out of money because she said they were getting ready to sell their house. And I just had the impression that they needed money. So she says she had no regrets, that they traveled extensively, but they did go back to work, and they both worked at Disney for 8 years. So it makes me think that it wasn't all very easy retiring at 62. And are you retired if you're working at Disney full time for 8 years? Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe she worked seasonally. She didn't really get into it, but I don't know that you're really retired when you're still working full time in a job. So even though she says she has no regrets, I feel like their money is pretty tight right now. And she did work a job along with her husband. So I don't know that I agree that they actually retired at 62 or 63. They just took their Social Security that young.
Yeah.
Steve, what else have we been doing?
Wow, we had a night at the Fox Theater in Atlanta. We saw Leanne Morgan. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a clean comedian. It was funny. We had balcony seats. It was a really good show. Very funny. It was a good night out.
She's from Knoxville. I bet she'd love this orange collar, don't you think?
Go Vols.
Yes, that was a really fun evening. For the first time ever, we got to eat in the marquee. We didn't know our tickets came with food and a private room. That was the first.
Yes, private restrooms and a full meal with coffee, tea, water, and desserts.
And access to the roof, yeah.
And access to the roof. Very nice.
Yeah, and we just love comedians. That's why we rode that funny bus in Charlotte. It was fun to see Charlotte and also have some laughs at the same time. But we're keeping busy. We've got some desks to put together for our new office and a new file cabinet. So you can catch that video in the future. And until we see you again,
take it easy.